Hello everyone, welcome along to the Rangers Rabble. My name is Brian, the host tonight, and normally this is a member show, but obviously with the news that came out a couple of hours ago, we decided that we would go public with it and let everybody have their say, because obviously this is massive news for the season ahead, big implications obviously for the league, Europe, and all sorts. But along with me tonight, I've got a grand old team here. I've got Wolf. How you doing?
That was a terrible introduction, Brian.
I know, I've just realised that now.
For a song, another mob sing, so we'll gloss over that. I'd like to personally apologise to the members, because it was me that suggested we went public, given that the statement that the club announced at, I think it was 5 o'clock or whatever it was, which didn't really tell us anything we didn't already know. But we'll get to that. But yeah, apart from that, yeah, I'm all good and raring to get ripped into the board.
Good stuff. Robert, haven't seen you for a while. How are we?
No, nice to be back, and we like-minded company. So listen, loads to get through. Obviously, statement aside, we were actually kicking balls yesterday as well. So it'd be good to go through bits and pieces there and just chat Rangers for the next hour or so.
Absolutely, Kieran, how are we?
All right, I just absolutely disgraced the shambolic statement that's came out. Apart from that, I live in the dream.
Absolutely. So yes, the news came out obviously a couple hours ago that the club are now confirmed that we will be playing a majority of a small sort of portion of our games at Hampden, obviously because of the works that's happening at Ibrox, the delays with the materials. So we will be going to Hampden for our European qualifiers and a certain amount of league games. So the statement came out, and I'll read it just in its full if anybody hasn't seen it or heard it. John Bennett, the chairman, made the statement, and it reads, first, I'd like to apologise on behalf of the club for the uncertainty that this delayed project has caused our season ticket holders, hospitality clients, partners, and wider support of this football club. The number of variables in this situation has made it extremely difficult to bring one thing we all crave: certainty. Nevertheless, we are closing in on the most immediate solution, a suitable venue at which to fulfill our fixtures and house our support. While the ongoing delay means that the club is unable to fix a date for our return to Ibrox, we anticipate that this will become clearer upon delivery of the necessary materials to Glasgow. Rangers thank the Scottish FA and the SPFL for their strong support in working to this solution. The club wholeheartedly appreciates the continued patience of our supporters while we work through the most trying of situations. I intend to give a fuller personal update by the end of July. End of statement. Wolf, when you read that, what was your immediate reaction?
My immediate reaction was that should have been a statement read in person by the chairman. Whether he said anything different from that or not, it should have been a video that they put out. It's not difficult to do. He's been very noticeable by his absence from. I mean, he's not done a statement since the first one he did when he became chairman. It wasn't very well received. We're still waiting for part 2 of it, as I remember. It was a 2-part thing, and we saw the first part. They got canned, so they binned it. I don't doubt for a second if we still had a CEO, the CEO would have been out and said something by now, but we don't. So there hasn't been any word at all. The statement didn't tell us anything we didn't already know. That's been widely reported by the media and and certain kind of in the no fan media, if you like. Where I mean, you got to assume that some of the media has been fed the information from the board. So why we are the last to officially be told, I don't know. I mean, on top of that statement, they also sent us an email out to season ticket holders on the back of the statement, and it just continued basically straight after the statement you've read. It continued: due to the capacity of Hampden being similar to Ibrox, all season ticket holders will be guaranteed a seat comparable to their own seat at the National Stadium for Premiership fixtures. And then it went on about European and Cup games and no CCS and all that sort of stuff. And that'll all come out. I mean, that'll all come out in the wash. And well, obviously, as it says in the statement, we'll have a clearer picture once the material arrives in Glasgow. We'll know how long we'll be away. I think the end of August is optimistic. I would imagine we'll be away from Ibrox till at least October. Now, that only affects one other league game, which is a game against Hibs at the end of September, I think. but obviously they'll have European implications as well. And I know there's been a little bit of panty wetting in our group chat about if you start the group stages in one stadium, you can't move from it. And I thought that was the case, and it might well be the case. But I believe that was brought in so that kind of smaller clubs couldn't have a plum tie and move it to a big stadium. I think in the situation we're in, UEFA, we probably say, look, we know you've an ongoing works in your ground. Once your ground's ready, you can move the games back there. I think what will help us in that is the fact that Barcelona are looking to move back into the Nou Camp at the turn of the year, which means their last home group European game needs to be moved there if they're allowed to do that. So hopefully that will help us, because if they get permission to do that, they won't be able to stop us moving back to Ibrox for our games. Again, that's all for the future. But the actual statement doesn't tell us anything we don't already know. But my biggest concern about it is the fact that it was a written statement rather than the chairman sitting in front of a video camera basically saying what the statement said. He needs to come out and front people up. If he doesn't do it, send another board member out to do it. It's the silence, the uncertainty that's annoying folk. Everybody knows it's a shite situation. It's a situation that is probably out with the club's hands, because construction always seems to fall behind. We just seem to be very unlucky that all the construction we're doing is falling behind, because Edminster House was a year behind. The new sports bar's 6 months behind already. It was supposed to be open in January. It's not even fitted out yet, and it's now July. So it's no great surprise that it's all, there's been a delay. But it's just for me, it's just the fact that they haven't come out and said anything until a very bland statement today.
Yeah, Robert, it was a very predictable one, wasn't it? It was very much what you expected. There was, as Wolf says, there was nothing in it that was new. Going by obviously what everybody's been saying in social media and just in group chats. Excuse me. Fans deserve better, don't they?
Listen, I think it shows that the board know very little in terms of when this is going to be resolved. You're starting to wonder why materials weren't put on order. When we knew the work was going to be done, and then they could just been housed somewhere and then ready to go when building work started, because we knew we were going to be working within tight restraints within a time scale. So certainly puts us behind the 8 ball in terms of starting the season. We've got massive games and European qualifiers, and then the new boys are going to have to be settled in. So to try and spin a positive, I think the players, the staff, the fans are going to have to sort of show a togetherness until it's resolved. Will says, October, we don't really know. We're sort of just putting a pin in a calendar at the minute, because until the materials arrive and then you can start setting estimated sort of completion dates, then it's all up in the air. So at least we know it's going to be Hampden. I think that settles people's minds, and they know where they're going to be travelling to. As a supporters, collective, we don't really enjoy going there. There was been sort of points made that you go to the ground or you go to the game with friends and family, you sit around guys that for years, and where are you going to be housed when you go to Hampden? How are they going to do that? Are you going to be stuck behind the goal? Things like that. So there's more personal issues to each supporter that I'm sure they're going to come out. You're not going to please all of them all the time, but I think it's just a case of we know what we're doing now. It's really important that we try not to let this derail the season, because it's got potential that it could do that.
Yeah, Kieran, I think that's what everybody's sort of worry is now, that all this sort of noise around the club is not helpful, and as Robert says, the worry is now that because we're housed in one stadium for part of the season, and then we're playing games at Ibrox when we eventually get back, there's a chance that you like to get the new players settled into the new stadium, get playing. Obviously they're not going to be able to do that, so there's a good there's a real worry now that this could just stop everything before we even start.
Yeah, that's what I said in the chat straight away as soon as I seen it. It's absolutely shambolic, but it's never going to help when new players settle in. If you've got a player, look at Hefty, for example, that's came in, it doesn't really speak English as his first language. Having to explain to him that, well, the game's there, but it should be there. And this I suppose the new players coming in will be told by the experienced players what Ibrox is like, especially on a European night. It's absolutely rocking. But is it going to be the same at Hampden? I don't know. I just think the way that the new players are going to settle in, having to go from I get home and away games, right? So you kind of make an excuse and they kind of go from venue to venue. But to have 2 home venues, it's going to be hard because Hampden's a total different pitch as well. And you're wanting your settled 11 to be consistent on that pitch, to then move them to a different pitch straight away and say, well, actually, you know, the pitch we've spoke about that's absolutely amazing and everybody loves and the fans are electric. Well, you'll not see them for a couple of months. I mean, that's going to be hard on them. Even the experienced players having to play in another environment to start with and not having that certainty of, is it going to be fixed or not? I totally get, like, it's not just the pitch, because that shouldn't affect the players on the pitch. We should be winning games regardless, especially if we're bringing the right people in and we're training them properly. You could be playing in somebody's back garden, you know, and would still expect them to win and put on a show. But this debacle with the stadium at the moment, and I think it's more the fans being in the lurch about it, is kind of what's got everyone up. If they were truthful and said, look, this is going to be a prolonged project at the start, because there's no way in a couple of days somebody's went, shit, maybe it's not going to run on time. They have to know this before they even start something.
I think that's my issue with this whole situation, Wolf. They must have known weeks ago that, you know, there was going to be a problem. And it's always the club that are last to say what's happening, as far as telling the supporters what's happening. You know, how many weeks has that been now that we've been, you know, wondering or sort of, you know, speculating where we're going to be playing? You know, it's been going on for weeks now. This is my whole issue with the thing, that the board should have been far more vocal earlier and said, look, guys, there's a problem here, but we're trying to work on things, you know, try to sort something out. But I think the communication, again, with the club, Wolf, is severely lacking, and this has been proven the situation, isn't it?
Well, it's not just this situation that the communication's been lacking in. I mean, the communication between those in charge of the club and the supporters have been very sketchy and non-existent for a number of years at Rangers. It's not even just in the current incumbents. You know, it's been in the past as well. I mean, even going back to David Murray's days, they only told us what they wanted us to hear, and they didn't. You know, it's back in the day, it was easy for them to say nothing because all you did was read it in the newspaper and forgot about it. But nowadays, it's a 24-hour, 7-day a week, every single second, you know, news cycle. You know, and if there's a vacuum, people will fill it. I mean, back in the day, if nothing was said, the only person you could discuss it with was either the folk you're in the house with or your mates down the pub. But nowadays, because of social media, if they leave a vacuum, it'll be filled by everybody speculating. And, you know, different people believe it, and the people that shout the loudest, their word tends to get heard above everything else. So they have to be smarter with their communication. I mean, the fact is they've come out now and told us something, which is fine. I don't, as I said earlier in my monologue at the start, I don't agree with the way they've done it. I think that the chairman should have come out in a video and actually said it, but it doesn't matter how he said it. He's come out and said it, and that's the way it is. We need to move on. It is going to be difficult because although I believe the pitch dimensions are the same at Hampden as they are at Ibrox, it's going to be a completely different atmosphere. Ibrox, you're very, very close to the pitch. Hampden, you're miles away. The atmosphere, it's going to be difficult for us to create the atmosphere that we do, particularly in European nights, because Ibrox is massive for us in European nights. So that's a disadvantage to start with. But let's not make excuses. I mean, as some of the guys have been saying, and I think Aldo was saying in the comments, players don't care where they play. You know, they're just told, look, there's a game of football. This is where you're playing. Because it's more than just one game, they'll get into a routine of playing games at Hampden. So that's not as bad as it could be. The fact that it's at Hampden, it's only 4 or 5 miles from Ibrox, if that. It's not Murrayfield. It's not going to be that much stranger for them. They can still probably do the pre-match that they would do. It just means they're travelling a little bit further. I don't know. I'm just happy they've come out and told us stuff, but they need to come out. They need to keep us in the loop. They need to. I mean, I don't know where the timeline thing's very important to me. We can't be playing too many games away. We need clarity on. I mean, if we can see all the speculation, the board must be able to see it. I mean, the big one that's raised its head tonight, as we mentioned earlier, is the European group stages, whatever group stages we're in, whether it's Champions League, which hopefully we're in, or Europa League that we would drop into. If it's not, if we start them at Hampden, do we have to finish them at Hampden? We need that cleared up. We need the clarity on that. The club need to tell us that. The chairman has to come out and say, look, we know this is the rules, but this is what we're saying to UEFA. UEFA have come back and said, we understand your situation. You can go back to Ibrox once it's ready. Or it's group stage all the way at Hampden, which I hope the hell it's not, because if it is, then that's going to be an absolute disaster, because it's a shithole to get to, a shithole to get away from. The interesting thing for me is going to be that they've said in their statement to season ticket holders that where possible they'll get a seat comparable with what they're in at Ibrox. I'd love to see how they do that for folk that sit in the Copeland and the Broomloan, because you would obviously say, well, they'll be in the east and the west stands. Well, the Copeland and Broomloan are what, 8 or 10 yards away from the pitch. At Hampden, you're about half a mile away. So how they can get comparable seats, I've got absolutely no idea.
Yeah, I think if you're in the main stand or the Govan stand, I think you're probably okay. But if you're in the Broomloan or the Copeland, then you're certainly going to be shortchanged as far as your view, certainly in the front row. Robert, it's just, for me, this is just very Rangers-esque, isn't it? I mean, if Bisgrove was in position, would he have come out and said something earlier? We don't know, because he seemed to be quite happy to be in front of the camera and saying things, whereas I think the chairman is, playing a bit of hide and seek here. You haven't seen him on camera for months now. It's just, as Wolf says, it's the lack of clarity, it's the lack of communication, it's the lack of just knowing what's happening. And as Wolf says, we've got European qualifiers coming up. We've got the possible group stages coming up. Does the rules apply as far as playing the the qualifiers in one stadium and then the group stage in another? Or if we start off playing group games in one stadium, can we transfer? There's no sort of clarity in that, is there?
Well, you'd like to think there's conversations going on with UEFA right now about that, because the club will want to know. I'm sure Clermont will want to know as well. Just to come back onto this point that's stayed on the screen for quite a while, Wolf was saying there about pre-match routine. I do think that's important. I think that's something the club will need to nail down pretty quick. They want to know how the players are getting there, whether it's going to be a coach, they're all going to be going there on their own, just things like that. We think so that the players aren't worrying about this sort of stuff. They can just concentrate on the game. In terms of Bennett and Bisgrove, I think that's a generational thing in terms of how different they are and their approach. Obviously, Bennett's probably a bit more old school. I do have to go back to Will's point as well and just say that I don't think he's covered himself in any glory since he's taken charge. Even at the Walter Smith sort of statue unveil, and I didn't think he was great. I just think that there's got to be a lot more coming for the chairman, certainly. But look, as we've said before, we're in this. Whether it's going to be the Champions League league format that we're going to be in, we're all sort of fingers crossed and hope that we're going to get a slice of that pie, or whether it's going to be the Europa League format, whatever it's going to be. It's more games this year. It's 4 home, 4 away. So you'd like to think that UEFA would maybe show a bit of common sense. It's extenuating circumstances. It's not like Celtic back in the 90s where they knew they were going to be playing away for their ground for a full season. So, it's panned out, as you say, the Rangers way. We've ended up with a wee bit of egg in our faces and we are going to be the butt of the joke. But the way to eradicate that is to get out on the pitch and start winning football matches and then not make it an issue. You don't want to be using it as an excuse come to Christmas where you've been packed out of Europe, no league format, no money coming in. You've lost the first Old Firm game of the season, and you're chasing tails. You don't want to sit there using an excuse. You've got to go there and try and give it your all. And I mean that supporters as well, making a lot of sort of negatives about players, fans sitting in places where they don't want to be, or as well said, just go and support your team. It's a difficult situation for everyone. Let's just go and try and get behind, because everyone wants the same thing here. Everyone wants to bring league title back to Ibrox. Yeah,
absolutely. And Kieran, as Roberts just said, the board haven't exactly covered themselves in glory. Neither has the chairman. There is a lot of negativity around this, obviously, because we're not going back to where we want to be. But we've not got a sort of good sort of rapport at Hampden as as far as a club. Is this maybe a chance to play a few games there and get a bit more comfortable with that sort of arena, and when there is semis and finals there, then it won't feel so alien when we go there?
Nah, to be honest, I don't think that wherever you play, if it's a semi-final or a final, it's always going to feel different regardless where you play. That could be, again, if you're playing at home and if it's a final, which is very unlikely, you know what I mean? You're still going to have that nervousness around it. I don't think it's going to change anything with Hampden. In regards to the board chat, right, I'm with Robert and Wolf. We need to support our team now more than ever. They're almost equal to us in trophies. I think they are actually equal to us in a trophy. However, the only way we can shut them up and stop them laughing is to go out there and put on a show. The thing is, though, as fans, all we can do is support, right? The board, I get they've not covered themselves in glory, but at the end of the day, it's not them that are sticking the football boots on and going out and playing. So, yeah, I totally get the board have not handled it very good, but it's down to our players. It's down to our players to actually roll up the sleeves and go, we're in the shit, let's get us out of it. The players will know. It'll be weighing on their minds that they're catching up with us. It wouldn't take a genius to be there for years and years and years to get Rangers, although some players haven't when they've came. The new guys that are coming in, the first thing they should be told is, we need to be out in front here. We can't muck about. It can't take a while to get settled in. They need to hit the ground running, and that's including at Hampden. They can't, players like Tav or something, if he's still here, can't come out and say, oh, well, it's the pitch or it's the change of uncertainty or anything like that. We need to do our talking on the pitch. All this shite about players coming out and saying stuff, etc. It's nothing. It means absolutely nothing. You need to do your talking on the pitch, and the board need to be there to support. The board should have been clearer. The board have made a mess of some things they've done, but it's no Bennett that's up front. You know what I mean? We're needing our players to be doing the talking, and I think that should be what everyone takes away for this. Is the board haven't done great. They've masked things, and they should have been completely honest. It's not an ideal scenario, but our main concern is we should be winning games. That's exactly what it should be, in my opinion. Support the team, win games.
Yes, definitely. We've got to get away from this negativity now. But the news just came through. We've got to just get on with it now. Wolf, I was wanting to bring this one up. JD said, I think how iconic Ibrox is, will maybe get a pass as they'll want Ibrox to be featured in their competition. Do you really think UEFA are going to sort of go to that stretch and do us a favour that way? I mean, it's asking a lot, isn't it?
No, I don't think it's about doing us a favour. I think, like I said earlier, I mean, the rule was brought in, I believe, to stop, a smallish club getting a plum draw and moving it to their national stadium so they could fill. Say, for example, St Mirren in Europe got a European group that included, Barcelona, right, and two smaller teams. Save them moving the Barcelona game at Hampden and playing the other two at St Mirren Park. Because it would be plum draw. They'd fill Hampden for that, but they wouldn't fill it for the other two. It's to stop clubs doing that. Now, in this situation, as long as we're up front with UEFA, and we should have been by now, say, look, we can't play them at Ibrox because with building work, it's been delayed. So once we're back up and running, it's okay to move back. We're probably maybe after the first home group stage game. Let's be conservative and say it'll be ready by October, and there'll be a home group stage game in September probably. I'd like to think UEFA would be sympathetic to that, particularly because Barcelona are quite vocal and they want to play their last one back at the new camp, and they're moving back there in January because at the moment they're at the Olympic Stadium. So again, it's a similar thing. They've got building work going on, although they've decamped for the last 18 months or whatever it is. So hopefully, but as we said, that's something we need clarity on whether we've even asked UEFA, is that possible? Or if somebody could clear up what the European rule is. But at least the board are starting to talk to us now. I mean, John Bennett's come out and said he's going to speak to us within the next 2 weeks, before the end of the month. That's a positive. That's more than's been said in the last 6 weeks. So that's a positive. We just need to get behind the team. If you can go to Hampden and you're in a position to go, you've got to go and get behind the team, support them. You know, the atmosphere won't be the same because you're further away from the pitch, right? But we need to make it. Although Hampden's an absolute midden, right? I hate the place. It's murder to get to, it's murder to get from, right? I get all that. I really do, right? But Hampden can be atmospheric. We can make Hampden. I've been in Hampden where the atmosphere has been absolutely brilliant because we've made it brilliant. But for us to make it brilliant, the team have to do the business. You know, I mean, the new players not getting their debut at Ibrox for a while, as has been mentioned about the comments. That's unfortunate. But at the end of the day, they'll get there. At least they don't know what they're missing. You know, I mean, if we can get the new players coming out to an absolutely rocking Hampden, imagine how much better it'll be for them when they get to Ibrox and they get a sample of that atmosphere. We just have to go out and win games of football. Okay, they're putting obstacles in front of us. Let's make the most of it. Just go out and win the games of football. We're better. We should be better than the teams we're playing. Even what we can potentially get in Europe, I think we should have a better squad than the teams that we're potentially playing. Although none of them will be easy. The home games that we'll have to play at Hampden, if it's the first 3 league games, we should be able to beat those teams wherever we play them. Suppose we play them in the car park, as Mr. Clement said in the past. Look, he'll play in the car park if he has to. You know what I mean? Just get the games played, get them won, get back to Ibrox as soon as we can, and let's kind of get out of the negativity. I mean, there's people chucking in the towel already saying, "Well, that's the league finish." We've not kicked the ball yet. I mean, you know, so let's try and get some positivity. And I know I'm the most positive Rangers fan out there, and I always try and look on the positive side of it. But let's not kid ourselves on, right? As much as the board will know what we are saying, because they'll keep an eye on it, what other social media are saying, and what podcasts are saying, what Twitter's saying, what Facebook's saying, they'll know all that. The players are well aware of it as well. Let's not kid ourselves on. They say they don't look at things. They'll know exactly what we're thinking. The negativity will get to them if we keep being negative. There's far too much negativity out there. You know what I mean? Okay, if we start the season poorly, I expect negativity because that's what will happen. Let's try and get behind the players. Let's just... We're in a bad place. As a club, we're in a bad place just now, right? But we've now got a solution, and it's a solution for however long it is, 6 weeks, 2 months, whatever it's going to be, right? Nothing we can do to affect it. So let's just try and get some positivity back.
Absolutely, and Rob, you're the most positive person I know. You see the bright side in everything. Do you think eventually we'll get over this and we'll get our heads down and get behind the team and just start supporting like just as it would be at Ibrox?
Well, we've got to do, haven't we? We've got some time to sort of adjust to the news, as it were. We've got some good pre-season friendlies coming up. Obviously, Man United, Union Berlin, the Birmingham game as well. So there's loads to look forward to, certainly. But then when the competitive stuff comes back, that's when it's going to the pressure's going to be on, because the players are going to be under a lot of pressure. The manager's certainly under pressure, there's no doubt about it. We've got to get into Europe this year. We've got to navigate those ties. So that's non-negotiable for me personally, because our neighbours are going to be getting a large chunk of that if we don't get in there. Add to that, your rumours today, their star players linked with a 15 million quid move that's been rejected, so that's going to be up to 18-20 million if he does go to Serie A. So we're backpedaling slightly. We're trying to get new players in, so I dare say some of our players are going to move on. So there's loads to go on before that happens. I just think in terms of John Bennett saying there'll be a statement or a more personal statement come the 31st or 30th of July, is because they're trying to buy time, because they don't actually know what's happening in the minute. They're probably hoping in the next couple of weeks there's a bit more clarity in terms of these materials, and then they can start telling us, right, this is when it's going to be done by, blah blah blah, and this is when we hope to get you back in. But I just think at the minute they don't know as much as we know. That's why they're telling us sort of in drips and dabs, and maybe why they tried to hold off, because I've been told it's coming, and it's not quite materialised. Pardon the pun.
Absolutely. And Ange McD, hi guys, never got to watch live, so hello. Yeah, nice to have you along. And just a little reminder, folks, to like.
Big Ange or wee Ange? Do we know?
No, I'm not falling for that one. Just to remind you to like and subscribe the podcast on our socials as well, with Twitter, with Facebook, with Instagram. We're all over them, so please give us a follow on those. Yeah, I mean, Kieran, just finally, that's half an hour we've been on about the stadium. I'm pretty sure we could go on for longer, but I'm not wanting to dwell too much on it because obviously we're trying to turn spin more positive news onto this. What can be positive out of this in the sense that the fans wanted the upgrade, as somebody said earlier in the comments. They wanted the upgrades in the stadium, so we're getting that. Unfortunately, as building works happens, it's very rarely that they say it's going to take X amount of days, weeks, months, and it happens. So should we be unsurprised there was delays? Simple as that.
I mean, the positive that's going to come for this is hopefully the fans rally together more than we ever have, and it brings the community a little bit closer. I think things like this, for example, everyone getting their say in the comments, etc., absolutely brilliant. It shows that everyone's passionate about Rangers. It doesn't have to be doom and gloom all the time. Some of the comments are directed at the board, etc., but everyone's coming together in a platform where they can talk about it. And this is where we need to rally together. We need to get behind these players. They're facing uncertain times at the moment. So we need to be kind of that rock behind them, be the fan base that we should be, and really, really come together for everyone involved with the club. New surroundings, etc. I'm hoping that the way to shut everybody up is to shut ourselves up and win games. You know what I mean? I think the tension with the fans at the moment is probably as well because the uncertainty with players and the recruitment, and they don't help themselves when they come out and say there's no immediate signings when we're screaming for a couple of experienced players, especially after Clement a couple of weeks ago said there will be focused on experienced players coming in. So I think that's what really needs to kind of materialise from that.
Absolutely. And believe it or not, folks, there was a game yesterday. We played our first pre-season game against Standard Liège over in Holland. And Wolf, the first half team was Butland in goal with Ridvan, Suter, Davies and King, Barron, Diamande, Lawrence, Cortez, McCausland and Dessers. I'm always a sort of advocate of pre-season games. The results don't really particularly matter. It's more about working the legs, getting the fitness up, getting ready for the first game of the season. The game ended up 0-0. There is highlights, on Rangers TV if you want to log in and watch them. But Wolf, 0-0. I mean, they played two teams, one half, and another team in the next half. That's just part and parcel of pre-season, isn't it?
Yeah, it's all about getting minutes into the legs of the players, and I believe there was a substitution after half an hour, and that was planned, and that's the way these things work. It's not about the result. Results are nice. I mean, that game wasn't streamed live for a reason. I mean, the next four are all available live on Rangers TV. The Ajax game, the Man U game, the Union Berlin game, and the game in Birmingham. They're all live available on Rangers TV if you can't get to them. The Standard Liège game wasn't live for a reason. The reason being it was the first game of the season, just basically a kickabout. I'm actually surprised that it was two halves as we know them, because I was half expecting it to be 3.5 hours. Like they did in the B team did that against Blackpool. I believe they did 3.5 hours. I thought the first team might have done that for that Standard Liège game, just to sort of mix it up a little bit. But I mean, I watched the highlights. There wasn't really a lot in them. I mean, it's a 0-0 draw against a decent team who are obviously just starting the pre-season as well. But that game really, it was only about getting minutes in the legs. I think the serious stuff starts on Saturday, if you can call pre-season games serious. When we play Ajax in Wezep. I only know the name of the place because I'm lucky enough to be going over to it. I'm actually
there's a surprise.
I'm actually representing the Rabble at it, believe it or not. We've got some media accreditation for it, so so we'll be reporting live from it at some point in the day, as long as their Wi-Fi's up for it. So I think the serious stuff will start on Saturday, but again, it'll just be about getting minutes in the legs. The important thing is with all these pre-season games is we don't take a scudding against anybody, because for me, winning breeds winning, and getting hammered breeds getting hammered. I mean, last season there was a lot of criticism about the pre-season that it was too intense. We played teams that that were basically better than us. And every single one of them was. And you know, I mean, I think personally, I think we're starting with it probably the hardest team. But again, it's the first games. I don't think there'll be much in it because Ajax are obviously decent. Man United's team will be probably their second team. So a lot of their players will have been at the Euros and still be on holiday. Birmingham City, well, they get relegated into League One, so you know they'll be rebuilding, but they should be a decent test, but not anything to be afraid of. And Union Berlin, although they're Bundesliga, they're a terrible season last season, stayed up with the skin of their teeth. But they'll still be a decent test. But they'll all be decent games. None of them are. It's not Real Madrid's and Barcelona's not that we're playing. You know, I mean, last year we played Olympiacos, who went on to have a brilliant run in Europe. You know what I mean? For example, so we're not playing anybody like that. So we can't read too much into pre-season. The game yesterday, it was all about getting minutes and legs, and working out who Alex Lowry was with that stupid blonde haircut hairdo that he's got. You know, I think Robert should get one of them for the next pod that he's on. That would be really good.
I think the game yesterday, Wolf, as well, is one of the first games you've not actually attended for many a year. You know, apart obviously from the COVID.
It was closed doors. There was nobody at it other than one or two journalists, I don't think. But you know, I mean, it is all just about getting minutes and legs. That's all these games are. I mean, it's noticeable that the starting the 11 that you read out, only one of the new signings started. You know what I mean? And the rest of them didn't. I mean, I know that some of them aren't even here yet because of, you know, well, obviously Hadji's not back yet. He's still on holiday. Cortez got taken off after half an hour. A substitution that, as I said, was already planned. Corner is the only one that started the game. You know, I would expect probably to see more of them in the next 2 or 3 games, but it will be managed minutes. You won't see anybody getting flogged. I think that was a problem we had before. The players were getting flogged stupid. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, it was noticeable that James Tavernier was nowhere to be seen. He wasn't involved in it at all, although he was there watching the game. You know, whether that's because of an impending transfer or they just wanted to try other things, who knows?
And then obviously, Robert, in the second half, there was Butland, Jefty, Insalia, Goldson, Balogun, McKinnon, Raskin, Dowell, Fraser, Wright, and Curtis. A lot of young ones in there. Two of the new signings in there were Jefty and Salah. Again, just nice to see them getting familiar with the squad and getting, you know, used to everybody playing. I mean, you can look at that and say he tried you could possibly say there was 3 centre halves in that sort of second half team. So was there a sort of deviation in the formation there just as a trial dummy run?
Listen, we saw these highlights on TikTok earlier this morning, so it was grainy footage and it was sort of a one-pan camera angle, so you couldn't pick out shapes and formations. However, like you say, you can't get too carried away in pre-season. We've saw, you know, I remember, you know, Blackpool and West Ham and thinking Rabbi Matondo was going to turn into a £20 million player. It didn't quite pan out like that. So you've got to just try and keep your feet on the ground, get through the games, don't pick up any injuries. And then when it gets down to the nitty gritty, you hope that they've learned and gelled together and they've got some personal, you know, relationships on the pitch that they can then, you know, bring to fruition in the games that matter. So, listen, the clips I've seen from training, you know, again, it's the club are obviously putting out what they want, but Insiala looks quite easy on the eye. I think it could be a player in there, but it's just getting to see them more in more competitive matches is the key. We certainly need to bring more in. It's just that's evident to me. As you mentioned about the youth, great to see them in there, but there's no way they're going to be staying in for the duration. Maybe Cole McKinnon and Fraser could have a chance. I know McKinnon sort of jumped in Europe last season, but didn't really see a hell of a lot from him from that moment on, as maybe we'd hoped. So I think he might have a bit of a push this year if he can manage it. And obviously Fraser coming in at the back end of the season as well because of, you know, the situation with Borna Barisic. But I think we need to be getting a few more in, maybe some that we're actually going to pay a decent fee for, somebody that's going to come in and start. I know obviously, you know, we've talked about Kenny McLean, at the back teeth. Links today that we've been scouting Lennon Miller. That one's that certainly gets me off my seat. I think that's a sort of, you know, profile that I'm looking at. Young guy, shows he can do it in Scotland. He was dictating games for Motherwell when he was playing last season, so he's one I'd be really excited to see whether we can. I don't know what fee they'd be looking for. I heard Stuart Kettlewell talking, saying that they won't be dictated to by the buying club. They'll say every player's got a value, and I'd imagine it'll be around the 3-4 million quid mark that they'd be looking for. But listen, there's certainly a player in there. He's got all the plaudits from everyone in the country, not just from Motherwell fans. So that one's going to be interesting to see how it pans out. But as I say, I think we need a few more in, a few more out. Just on Tavernier and Cantwell, there was I think it might have been Paul before we kicked off, or as we kicked off, sort of said that Cantwell and Tav might have been nursing wee knocks, maybe why they weren't risked. I know a lot of people are reading into it saying that that's Cantwell away. Definitely, he's going. He wasn't played yesterday, but if he would definitely go on, he would have been a la Sam Lammers and left behind. So, I definitely think there'll still be some turnover. It's just whether we can get some fees in and get it replenished back into the team and try and rejuvenate this, because it's a massive year. And obviously that every year, but it just feels like it's going to be a big year, especially as I say before. Getting on that European front, we've got to get in there.
Brian, sorry, just to touch on something Robert said there. The Sam Lammers thing's very interesting, right? Because yes, he's back on heavy training on his own, right? Because you have to assume that there's a transfer very, very close, right? But they took Robbie McCrory with them, and we all knew he said his goodbye. He said his goodbyes to the staff at Auchenhowie before they left on Sunday, so they knew he was going to come on, but still took him.
Mm-hmm.
So that's interesting.
Yeah, strange. Smoking mirrors, smoking mirrors.
And just for your reference, Robbie Fraser isn't in Holland.
He's not there.
He played for the B team against Blackpool.
Right. Okay.
Before I come on to JD's question, Kieran, as I said at the start, I don't pay huge much attention to pre-season games in the sense of the results or anything. What I am looking for this season is, as Wolf said earlier, and I think Robert said as well, not to be flogged and to be managed properly in these pre-season games, because they're working extremely hard in pre-season to get their fitness up. A few 10-15 minutes too much game time could really hurt somebody for the long term as far as the season as the season's coming. I just want players to be managed properly in the pre-season and not flogged like we have seen.
Yeah, listen, I think it's some players might prefer to play a constant amount of games to get themselves into the season. That might be how they want to get themselves into the season. But it's all sports science these days. They've got it all mapped out on who's going to play this amount of time and who's ready for this amount of time. And if he plays this amount of time, can he play that amount of time the next game? It's all down to sports science. Like the thing about Cortez, they said it was a planned substitution. So even before the ball was kicked, they're saying to Cortez, you're playing... I've seen that there. Probably, Wolf Kenzie's stuff. He's
sorry, apologies. It was Adam Devine was left behind, not Robbie Fraser. Sorry, I'm getting my fullbacks mixed up.
There we go.
Cheers, Wolf. I'd take your foot off my head there. That's that defend you. No, I think it's genuinely just, it's all coming down to sports science. We can't read into players not getting played, because Kane and our luck, we would be right. We'll get Dessers away. We'll play Danilo for 45 and he gets himself injured and he's out again for the entire season. I think we really need to manage players, especially ones that have either not kicked the ball for a while or has actually been injured. So we've got to nurse players back in. It's quite good to see the likes of Lowry coming back in. I quite liked him coming back in with the squad. I thought it was quite, apart from the haircut, but it was quite good to see him kind of gelling back with the squad after what he's went through, because there's always been an attitude problem there. So it's been leaked constantly, but maybe he's the type of manager Clement needs to, the player Clement needs to put his arm around and get him gelled in with the squad. I think that's going to be beneficial for players getting to play with different people as well. So it's not going to be the consistent starting 11, which we've seen in the bounce games before, where some managers were afraid to make substitutions in the bounce games. So I'm just hoping that the sports science have got this right and the players know themselves when I've maybe had enough at the moment, let me rest up and give me maybe an extra 30 next game. We really need to be delicate with our players for for games that obviously are coming up at the start of the season.
Absolutely, yes. Now, obviously, we had this as a member show at the start, but we changed quite late on. So if there's any questions like JD has put in, I've seen a couple hours come in to the comments, get them in now. We've got 15 minutes left, so we'll answer as many questions as we can. If you guys want to raise anything about Rangers, get them in just like JD has. So question for the panel. Would you rather know everything and not be able to talk about it, or just as you are now and playing the guessing game with incomings and outgoings? Now, Wolf, I think Robert and Kieran are probably slightly younger than us in the sense that they won't remember the days of not knowing nothing and then hearing it or reading it in the paper that this guy had signed for Rangers. That was the normal way that things happened. But then all of a sudden, we were a lot sort of hearing things quicker. Do you like to know things that's happening, or do you prefer to just see a signing out of the blue?
From the point of view of doing a podcast, it's quite nice to hear the rumours because it gives you something to talk about. But I don't pay much attention to the rumours other than for coming on here. I'm not one of these ones that hears the rumours and jumps onto YouTube and has a look at all the all the YouTube reels of guys that were supposedly be signing. I think even if we did know everything, we'd still talk about it because that's just what Rangers fans do. Everybody's got their opinion, you know what I mean? And I mean, opinions are like arseholes. Everybody's got one, you know what I mean? And we'd still talk about it. It'd be quite nice to know a bit more than we do. It's great when we sign somebody out the blue. It's fantastic. It's great. It's the way it should be. It amazes me some of the people we get linked with that have absolutely no chance of ever coming for us, or we wouldn't want it, we don't need it or whatever. But yeah, it's an interesting question. I just think even if we knew everything, we'd still be linking people with Rangers. It's just the way it works, I'm afraid.
Yeah, Robert, are you in the camp of like to know things and talk about it, or do you just like to see things just thrust upon you out of the blue?
I like speculation. I love the rumour mill. I think it's all part and parcel of the transfer window. I remember when a wee guy and got up to my granny's, she used to get a daily record every day and sit at the kitchen table reading back to front about football and who was coming to Rangers and who wasn't coming to Rangers. So I love all that. I think it's the best part of the summer. Your teams get linked with, as Will said, there are a whole host of names. You end up with about 2 or 3 of them. So look, we've been linked with a few players. Whether they're all going to march into Ibrox come kick-off is yet to be seen. But what I'd like to see is just, somebody said at the start of the pod about 4 lads had said we are going to bring players in the coming weeks. That's a given. We have to. We've lost a lot of players. A lot of players have went out when they're freed of contract and what have you. So brought a few in, albeit younger players. We need to get that mix and that balance right. And obviously, if there's going to be any more going out, so I think there's still plenty of work to do. I think the manager will still be doing that. I don't know if Coppin's still in Glasgow or where he is. I don't want to say in case Wolf comes to me because he knows exactly whereabouts. So so we'll just have to see how it pans out. But listen, the club I think will back the manager. They seem to be doing that at the moment. They seem to like him. He ran a decent race last season when he came in. Obviously wins the League Cup and then he goes 16 unbeaten. The wheels fell off. Whether you want to put that in the manager's door or question the players' mentality that have been there for a long time. I'm sure there'll be bits and bobs on either side of that fence. So I think, as I say, they're going to back the manager. He's got to just get in what he needs, get it in nice and early, so it's all there for these European games in the start of the season. I think even going to Tynecastle in that opening days, it's a tricky tie to get yourself up and running. We saw that last season, albeit a bit of a diminished squad on the day, but still it was a tricky afternoon. Hearts have recruited well. You brought in Ross County's best player last season, Yandanda. Blair Spittle had a really good year at Motherwell. He's come in. And James Penrice has been very steady Eddie for Livingston for a number of years. So they've done smart business. They've picked and chose from the other provincial clubs as well. So it'll be interesting to see if we can go there and just impose ourselves and get ourselves off on a right good start with 3 points.
Robert, don't worry, I'm not coming after you because I made an absolute arse of that with Rodney Fraser and Madden Devine. So I'm out on that one, I'm afraid.
Listen, I shat it. I just backed down straight away.
I made a mess of it, but hey, that's just the usual.
It's all right, you forgive me. It's all right.
I take it Robbie Fraser was in Holland.
You read his name out?
Yes,
yeah, exactly. That's why I knew.
Adam Devine that captained the B team. And Robert, you don't keep it in with me because I've got a Birmingham ticket for you.
I know.
Yeah, Robert, you better be a bit nicer to Wilf.
I don't behave myself.
So, Kieran, are you as the question is, are you a guy that likes to know things before they happen, or do you just like the out of the blue stuff?
Well, I'm nosy. I'd love to be in the know, but again, it's see these speculations. It's a talking point. It gives you a chance to have a laugh with your pals, have a laugh in a group chat. Look at the highlight reels of Sam Lammersman. I was filled. Like, I honestly, I think that the transfer speculation is probably what gives the fans something to talk about together, because all the comments, like for example, we almost got a full pod about Kenny McLean. I mean, if we were in the know and knew if it was happening or not, then it would never have been addressed. But it's a good laugh. Everybody gets involved. And like I said, like in the group chats, our group chats would be absolutely dead if it wasn't any transfer speculation or if we were in the know about things. So it's good. Maybe in some places I'd maybe want to be in the know for, but for transfers and speculation, it's a guessing game. I like it. It's a bit of a rush when you're linked to somebody good. I mean, I didn't really want to mention his name because he never brought us luck, but when we were linked with that player that didn't do the best in the final, but when we were first linked with him, everybody kind of went, oh, there's no chance we're going to get him. And then he's standing outside Ibrox with a scarf and everything like that, and you're like, wait a minute here. So, again, being in the know with that, you'd be quite happy to, but speculation and transfer mills, I much prefer that.
Now, the question that was on the screen there before it disappeared was, does anybody have any knowledge of the new scout at Ibrox called Ludovic Lemore, who left Marseille? Now, I had no knowledge of this guy prior, so I was at best doing a bit of Googling about him and to see what he was about. Wolf, are you the same as me?
I know absolutely nothing about the fella.
Robert, are you going to try and bail us out here? Because nobody, unless somebody in the comments can say they know anything about him, but I am putting my hands clean up in the air here and saying I have no knowledge of this guy. He's obviously came from Marseille. They do a lot of business.
I'll be really honest, I know nothing about him. However, it would marry up with, there's been a link tonight to a Moroccan wide player who's from Marseille, one Oussama Targahilan. I hope I've not butchered that. So yeah, that could maybe 2 and 2 and maybe getting 7. But again, it's the transfer rumours that's the rumour mill in overdrive. If it's another Moroccan, might be good actually in terms of settling down the one we've already brought in and giving him a wee buddy. It seems to be what buddying players up. Danilo and Hefty, and now Egamani and this chap. So as I say, it can only be good for us. I feel like we've not done enough proper scouting since probably our return. You look at the players we've brought in. I know Michael Beale done a little bit of wheeling and dealing and get out and looking at players, but I think you kind of felt that that wasn't great in terms of it was all on him. So it's better, back having a network of guys that can go out and cover areas and find hidden gems, because that's what we're going to have to do now. There's no way we're going to be spending 8, 9, 10 million quid on a player, shipping out those wages. It's got to be 1.5, 2, 3 million quid, and fingers crossed that you get 1, 2 really good seasons out of them and sell them at the peak of their powers. And this player trading model that we've been about for the last 6 or 7 years comes to the fore, and we start becoming a proper football club in that regard again. But as I say, no knowledge of this scout from Marseille. I think these things become irrelevant. See, when you're winning trophies, that people don't look at that, they don't care. They just want to see results in the park. But it's when you're not doing so well, you're looking at every wee aspect of how can you change this, how can you turn around the club's fortunes, and this is another example of that.
Yeah, Kieran, are you in the same boat as me and Wolf with next to no knowledge about this new Ludovic Lemore?
No, nothing at all. No idea who he is. But welcome to Rangers, hopefully, and hopefully brings a wee gem with him. So
absolutely, and I think as Robert just said, he's gonna open up avenues to different markets. He's linked. We're linked now with a young Moroccan winger, so there's all that to come. But I mean,
Brian, a club like Rangers, right? We should have scouts all over the place, right? I mean,
yeah,
if you remember, nobody had heard of Alfredo Morelos before Peter Lovenkrands said, "Go and have a look at him." Oh, sorry, Jonathan Johansson said, "Go and have a look at him," right?
Yeah.
And we brought him in, and look what happened with him. It's you know, he's here 6 years, scored a bundle of goals, top European goal scorer for us, all that. You know what I mean? We should be looking at guys like that, but we need to do what we didn't do with Buffalo and sell them at the peak of the powers. You know, if we're looking for 18 million and somebody's in with 16, sell him, because he's not going to get any more. It's like the Dessers thing, right? I'd be quite happy to keep Dessers because he scores goals. Okay, he misses loads, but he scores goals, right? But he's not going to be worth any more to us than he currently is.
no.
Right? So if a bid comes in and it's money back, sell him. That's the way it has to work. It doesn't necessarily have to be, well, you paid 4 million for him, you have to sell him for 8. Pay 4 for him, sell him for 6, sell him for 5. You know, don't lose money on the deal. You know, I mean, you touched on Hearts earlier because it's the first game we've got, and you said, you know, they've brought in guys from the Scottish market. They've also got in guys from Costa Rica and places like that who are fairly decent players. Why are we not bringing in these guys? You know what I mean? You know, we should be looking at these markets. Hopefully now with the new scout from Marseille and with Coppin and with Clement and the guys that they've got about them. Well, hopefully we are looking at these other markets. You know, and bringing in people from Westfield and doing what we should be doing, bringing in players, developing them. I mean, the fact everybody we've brought in so far is under 22, 23-year-old. They are probably projects for 2 or 3 years. We as supporters can't get too attached to them. You know, it's all the whaling and gnashing of teeth. Oh, we can't be selling him. That's what has to happen, I'm afraid. That's football these days. But we do need to bring in some more experience, and we need to do it bloody quick because the season's only 3.5 weeks away or whatever it is.
Robert, as I know you like rumours and speculation, the Shankland one still doesn't go away. It's, you know, most days you see it. Well, I've just got to go on what I'm reading. There's also the Lennon Miller link with Motherwell, which has recently just reared its head in the last few days. We certainly, Rangers as a club, used to plunder the Scottish League, you know, buy a lot of the young players like David Roberts from Aberdeen, Stephen Wright, you know, guys like that. But these two, well, certainly Miller especially, is the one that sort of gets your attention because he has been really good for Motherwell, isn't he?
Oh, absolutely. As I said before, he was a shining light last year. I think, you know, had he not got injured, he did have a much bigger impact in the league in Motherwell's Pro League position. David Watson was another one that sort of caught the eye. So you're right. There's certainly gems there. Connor Barron is one that I think you've done really well to get in terms of value. I think he's pound for pound. That's a really good sign. But to just come back to Dessers, Calgary, I think it is the latest one sniffing about, rumoured to be into. I think it's 5 million that's been touted about now. It's well said. He scored a lot of goals, missed a lot of goals, and he's not really easy on the eye. Add to that, I don't think he's Clement's player. Obviously, didn't bring him to the club, so if the manager can get money in and get somebody that he wants in, I think he'll do that. We've also got Danilo, who's come back for injury. He's a £6 million striker, and then the Moroccan as well. So there's plenty of room to manoeuvre up there. I think we should bring one in. There's two. We spoke about Longshank for 12 months. I also think Bojan Majovski, if you can get him at a good price, would be another one. So there's two really good strikers in the league that would probably be available if the money's right. It's just whether the manager fancies them, or if he's got eyes on other targets. Because yourself, coming for the continent, he might have seen a player that he's seen in Belgium or when he was in Ligue 1. You never know, what's in his eyes. So as I say, it's an interesting one, that striking position. I do think we need to bring one in, and somebody that's going to be a starter. I think the Moroccan boy is maybe going to get drips and drabs rather than handed a shirt for the off.
I suppose as Robert and Wolf and Kieran will know, I'm probably just trying to make Jim and Kirky's dream come true with Shankland coming to Rangers. I think every phone in that he came on, he was beating the Shankland drum. But Kieran, when there is guys playing in our league who are blatantly obvious playing, standing out for their team, is it not a bit of a? It'd be remiss of us not even to ask the question if they're available, wouldn't it?
Well, didn't the late great Walter do that? I mean, he took quite a couple of players from good, the Scottish teams and made them brilliant. Well, can't say brilliant players, but he made them good players for Rangers. I mean, Clement and Coppin surely has to have that talk, saying, "Well, he knows the league. You're bringing right." So my theory is right. You're bringing loads of foreign players in who don't know the league. They don't know the. Well, you can only be taught expectations of Rangers while you're at Rangers. There's no point somebody sitting across the table for somebody and like what Beale did, saying, "I want you to play for Rangers, etc. I think you would fit it." And they come in and they're absolutely a shadow of a player that we need. Again, tapping in the foreign market has worked before, but how many times are we going to neglect the actual home talents we have here? And it's because the Scottish League don't have that clout. It's because we don't have that clout. Say, for example, right, Yamal was playing for St Mirren. We wouldn't go near him. You know what I mean? Like, if they've got a standout player that are maybe not at that age, are still at a project, we would bring them in. There's no youth set up here at all. They would just be sitting on a bench doing absolutely nothing, playing the odd friendly. Do you know what I mean? But when it comes to tapping into the Scottish market, we should be looking at the likes of Lennon Miller, Shankland, and a dream world, Miofsky. You know what I mean? We should be looking at those players that know the league, that know how to beat the two big teams in the league. Look at Kelly. Kelly beat us. They beat them. And folk are saying we don't want them because it's Kelly. They're not good enough. So that's why we're not going for them. But when you look at it, it's those type of players that we need that are going to be able to come in and show that a bit of fight, that know the league, that want to get bigger moves. Their biggest team could be Rangers or Celtic if they go to them. They might not move any further, but having that opportunity to play for them and see this rubbish going, well, we want him because he's a Rangers fan. That works if they've got experience and they can play. I don't want us just signing people because they've been to a Rangers game before. Shankland, on the other hand, Shankland's proved it in this league. He's went away abroad, didn't like it as much, came back, found his feet in this league, absolutely tore up his league. Was a crime that he never got many minutes at the Euros. However, Shankland, I think, would make a big difference for us just because he's that robust player. And you could say, Dessers holds the ball up too, but Shankland's goals speak for themselves. He's scoring against the teams that Dessers couldn't. There must be something in the Scottish League that we should be taking. And Timothy's put that thing in. Stuart's put that thing in there in the comments. But Lewis Ferguson, we missed the boat on him big time. He's going to go on to much bigger and better things if he comes back for this injury, okay. We should have been in about for him when we had the chance. And if we don't maybe trust our gut and go for maybe Lennon Miller, and he could be the player that either goes to them and they get he could have a standout season there. You know, we could go somewhere else, and again, because we are too arrogant to invest in the own league.
Yep, I've said it for a long time that. But folks, that is us. We're in injury time in the Rabble. We're 3 minutes over. My thanks to everybody in the comments. As I say, some great questions in there. I know this was meant to be a members pod, but sorry, Aldo, member for 19 months. Well done, Aldo. Much appreciated. Like, share, subscribe, and follow. Yes, very much so, Aldo. But again, thanks to everybody in the comments, but more importantly, thanks to Wilf.
Thanks, Brian. Just to pick up on Aldo's point here, he says he can't wait for Saturday to finally watch us against Ajax. As I mentioned during one of my several rants tonight, I'm actually going over to the game to cover it on behalf of the Rabble. I've been lucky enough to get that. We will have something coming from the ground. I've no idea what it is yet because hopefully their Wi-Fi is decent. If it is, I'll try and do a post-match and I'll be half-time or whatever. And I'll be pre-match. Maybe we'll see what happens. But there'll definitely be something from the game. I don't know what shape it's going to take, but there'll be something. So keep your notifications on, guys. There'll be something from the first pre-season game from the Rabble on Saturday.
Magic. Much appreciated. Well, thank you, Robert, as well. Nice to see you again.
I don't know what happened to me there. I look like I've just got an invite to Naveed's daughter's wedding. It's went that bright in here, but no. Oh, there we go. It's changed back. Brilliant. There we go. No, listen, great to be back and looking forward to the season. Cheers for having me again, guys. Thank you.
Absolutely. Kieran, thanks for coming along. Much appreciated.
No worries. Pleasure as always.
Absolutely. Paul, just seen your comment there. The women's pod, well, I think we're still waiting for more news. I suppose we could briefly speak about it, Wolf, but we finally got the news today that Rachel McLaughlin moved on to Brighton and Hove Albion.
Best of luck to her, but she's not a player anymore. Let's concentrate on Rangers. But yeah, best of luck to Rachel when she goes to Brighton. Teamed up again with Libby Banks, who she had a bit of game time with last year. So yeah, all the best to her.
Absolutely. But as I say, thanks to everybody in the comments. Thanks to the guys here. We will, if there's breaking news, anything happens, we will hopefully be on top of that and be all over it and be live as soon as possible. And until then, we shall see you soon.